continue. you're on.
I'd like to call to order the Special Contacts Committee. Committee members are myself, Cheryl Ramos, Jim Seldenwright, and alternate Dean Collins. So we have a couple of items to go over this evening. The first one is Resolution 25-2022. And this is one that we get annually, and it is just to accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing necessary tax levies. So it looks to be, the only thing that's on there right now is the fire station levy. So this is just something that we do every year, that just has to go through the normal process. And Beth has requested that we add this to tonight's agenda and pass it on first reading.
This is something, I mean, we're given this, there's no, I guess,
There's
there's
no
not like a
change.
negotiation, like, there's nothing that
No.
changed, just is what it is.
Yeah, every year we have.
We just have to authorize it every year that they, so that they continue to tax
Okay.
our residents.
We have a motion to add this to this evening's agenda and pass on first reading.
I will make a motion to add proposed Resolution 25-2022 to tonight's agenda and suspend the rules and pass on first reading.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take roll. Mr. Seldenwright?
Yes?
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. The second thing is Resolution 29-2022. This is a separate resolution to accept the alternate formula for distribution of local government funds. It's reapproved every 10 years. Beth, can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, when I first started, I had to do a tax budget that was really ridiculous. I had to show a lot of need for us to get local government and get as much as we possibly could. It was always called a liar's budget because it didn't really, it had no basis in reality. And so the county went this way, and they want to now, and they have been for, I think, 20 years, proportioning local government funds that they get in to the county in the way it's laid out, percentages for the townships, villages, cities, which is a fairer way based on population than trying to show more need than the next guy when you don't even know what the next guy's doing.
So this one's 33.5% is the, for
Yes.
cities is the total county
Mhm.
allocation. Any questions on that? Again, this only comes, this is a 10-year,
I
every
think
10
it's 10
years.
years, yes.
Thank you. Just to be clear, that's from the sales tax that they enacted and also state money that they get?
Yeah, it's a whole mixture of all kinds of money that they collect here in our county, and then they reapportion it back to the county in some way, and then the county gives it to us.
And those are set amounts.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And you said that you did, you'd like this to be
Yes.
passed on first reading as well?
I'll make that.
Okay.
I'll make that motion that we, resolution 29,
29.
yeah, resolution,
I
try that
got
one
it.
more time. 29 be added to tonight's agenda and passed on first reading.
Have a second?
Second,
All right, we'll take roll call. Mr. Seldenwright?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Okay, the last thing is ordinance 17-2022, and this is a yearly thing as well. It's the agreement for indigent defense services for 2023. And this is again something that, Marvin, am I correct in saying that the rates are set and,
Yeah, Beth could tell you about it.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen ordinance 29, you're the one that gave it to me?
no, this is 17 for the
Oh,
indigent
17, I'm
defense
sorry.
with the prosecutors.
I just got my thing pulled up, it made me change my password. Yeah, on the indigent defense thing, it's the same as it was last year. We're required pursuant to the Fourth Amendment to provide anytime somebody is facing jail time, we are required to provide them with defense if they can't afford an attorney. And we have a contract with the Public Defender's Office to do that, and it's significantly cheaper than if we were hiring outside counsel.
Any questions on that? And Mrs.
Oh,
Ramos?
yeah. If I read all that right, that doesn't have to be passed on emergency. We got some
Correct.
time to do
We have
that,
some time
correct?
to do it. yeah.
Correct, we can go 3 readings on that.
But I'd like to have it done before the end of the year, so that the mayor can sign the contract, we can get it going.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to add it to tonight's agenda for 3 readings.
Okay, we have a second?
And I second that.
Okay, we'll take roll call. Mr. Seldenman?
Yes?
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. That's all that I have for this evening. Is there anything else to discuss? Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. I had to get one out clearly.
Okay, it's now 6:51, and I'm going to call the Public Works and Economics Committee to order. Members are Mrs. Ramos, Mr. Pace, myself, my alternate is Mr. Ricklick. And we have one item to discuss tonight, and that's proposed Resolution 26. Kind of going on a theme tonight. This is another one of those ones that it's a normal one that we do every, I don't know how many years is it, Mr. Pace? 10 years, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I remember 10 years ago when we did this. Yeah, so is there any questions on the
Free
proposed?
bridge inspections.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions.
Anybody in council have any questions or administration, anybody? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Oh, and you would like this passed tonight also to law director?
Yes, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Service Director, that needs passed tonight, correct?
Which one is it?
The bridge.
The bridge inspection.
Oh, yeah, and I sent that to everybody, I sent it late. Yeah, and it just got to me Tuesday the 6th. No fee, no charge, yeah, you're right, it's every 10 years, and there's money in there, so it's gonna be free to us again. Sorry about that, Marlon.
That's all right.
Mr. Chairman.
Does committee see any action on this?
I'll make a motion to add Resolution 26, 2022 to tonight's agenda and pass on first reading.
Okay, you have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Mrs. Ramos. We'll take roll call. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes also. That's all I have. Do we have anything else to come before committee? Motion to adjourn? Mr. Pace, at 6:03.
Oh, that's what it said. It was, they made like 5.7
Okay, I'm
million.
calling the zoning and annexation meeting to order. And I'm myself, Cheryl Ramos, a chair. My committee members are Jim Selderwright, Dan Lonzer, and alternate is Mitch Pace, and everyone is here. So the purpose of this meeting is to review the proposed ordinance 16/2022. That is to permanently rezone parcel number 4304799-000 in the city of New Philly from industrial zone to business zone. The property is located in the city limits on East High Avenue and the corner of 10th Northeast. This parcel was owned by the county commissioners, and they wish to use the property for a multi-purpose building, primarily for the Board of Elections, and this is still in the planning stages. And the Planning Commission approved the rezoning on August 9th at their monthly meeting. And we have in attendance Commissioner Metzger here representing the commissioners. And I'll just open up, do you have anything to share about?
I've talked with the other commissioners, and we have no objection to moving forward. We think it's a good idea. That's in the middle of the neighborhood. And it would be nice to not have it as industrial, move it to a business oriented piece, because we own that property. It goes back to Ray Avenue, where that property is. And, our first effort is we really want to build we call it a multi-purpose building. It'll be about 15,000 square feet is what we're talking about. We just had a meeting today, so the plans are in the process. The architect was at our initial meeting to discuss the plan, beginning of the discussion of the plans and what we want. It'll be a 15,000 square foot facility, 10,000 square feet for the board elections. It'll be it'll not be stories. It'll be a basement. And if we're going to go down, it's cheaper to go down than it is to go up. So we're going to have the main floor on the first and the ground level. The storage part for the board of elections will take up all the bottom. And then we're going to have another block that off from them. We're going to have another 5,000 square foot storage facility. They'll be all connected, at least at this point. And because the county is running out of space. If you go up there and look in the basement where community corrections is, we're busted at the seams. So we thought, well, we had the opportunity to try to find some additional. So again, I think this is a good decision to move to a business zoning piece, because we don't want anybody, although we own the property, I wouldn't want anybody to be able to do an industrial type piece. I think business is the appropriate zoning.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm taking notes the old-fashioned way. Okay, Mayor Day, did you have anything to add?
Just that this rezoning would remove a spot zone of industrial zoning, as the commissioner indicated, and it would flow with the business zoning that's adjacent to it, that, like Penzo's Pizza exists, and there's business zoning across the street from it also.
Thank you.
So it sort of, gets rid of that spot zone and has it conforming with surrounding business zoning.
Thank you. Ron, did you have anything to add about the water and sewer? That's already there, right?
Correct.
And I did talk to Commissioner Obiel, and he said that the EPA's already looked at the land and it's clean,
Yeah, it's clean.
no issues there.
There was a gas tank or something that was in there that had to be pulled out at one time there must have been a gas station in the front, towards the front, that was pulled out.
Okay, so it's all ready to go and no issues with the EPA?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the committee?
Well, I do just in that area, and I know we're in the planning stages of it now, parking. So, I mean, is it, well, I mean, is it, it's far enough up off the road, is there, would be front parking, parking in the back? I just know that area is kind of limited.
I really can't tell you at this point. Like I say, we just had our initial discussion. We brought the Board of Elections in, and the commissioners, with the architect, and we laid down the ground rules of how we're gonna approach this and do that. Parking is an issue. We'll just have to see where the building fits in the footprint of that upper front section. So we're hoping we'll be able to put most of the parking there, or all of the parking there, but it just depends. I mean, we're gonna have employees there. They've got currently 8 employees, and they've got, and the Board of Election, or the board folks there, so we'll have to provide some employee parking. We'll just have to see what space is left to be able to do the parking.
I think it'd be a beautiful spot for it, especially over there on the east side, but
Well, it's gonna be
that's,
very nice looking building.
yeah.
What I've gathered.
We've got the I mean, it's not like parking's plentiful anywhere it's gonna be, so I just didn't know if that was going to be taken into consideration.
There isn't any parking on the street, I'm sure. I mean, it's just not, parking will be on the property.
Thank you.
I think what you'll find there, Councilman Stonewright, too, is, when we looked at it, the alley behind it is vacated, but they can't build over top of that because there's a water line through there. So I feel there'll be building there, and that'll be parking lot, probably from there on, so type thing, so we can still access that water line, is what I think you'll see.
Thank you, that was a good question, because, you know, parking is important, and there are certain times of the year the Board of Election gets really busy, and certain years. So. Okay, anybody else? Okay, anybody on council, have any questions? Yes, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Isn't parking determined by square footage and occupancy? So there has to be
A minimum.
a minimum of X based on the square footage.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
We just don't have anything to go by right now. There's no
plans.
plans. But yeah, that'll be calculated. Depends on what business it is, it tells you. It's got like 6 or 7 different ones that say it. That'll be dictated by us. There's always a chance to go to Board of Zoning Appeals. You can do that if like it says 50 and you want to take it to 30, like Arby's did it down on the east end, or west end, I'm sorry. So there is a chance to do it, and I've seen them do with 1 or 2 less, or maybe 3, but very rarely they do anything. So it will be dictated by the size of the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So dovetailing off that, my question would be is, are you guys are gonna work, the commissioners closely with, say, Ron and the mayor about
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
the
we'll-
parking?
yeah, once we get some plans.
I don't know if they got any choice. I don't know if the question to them.
Now, once we get the
Well-
plans drawn up, it'll be a lot easier to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
We will work with the mayor and,
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah, they have to comply to our zoning regulations.
Right, well, I mean, above and beyond, you guys are very aware, I'm sure, of, the space issues and parking issues at the Board
Right,
of Elections,
right.
so good. Good question, anybody else? Okay. Okay, so, this is proposed ordinance 16/2022. Do I have any motions?
Do we need to pass on emergency or?
This has to, a rezone has to go 3 times.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so,
I'll make a motion to add, propose, resolution 16 to tonight's agenda and hold for 3 readings.
okay, second? Sorry, just looking down the row here. Okay, so, any other matter to come before this committee? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
We have to move.
We have to vote.
Oh, yeah, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I'll take a vote,
Yes.
Yes?
and I vote yes. Okay, now, any other matter to come before the committee? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise and remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, you blessed us with this day, and I pray that we've used it in a way that's a blessing to you. Father, yesterday we celebrated, well, not celebrated, but we recognized 9/11 after 21 years and against attack against our freedoms by a terrorist attack. We just pray that we never forget that day as Americans. We mourned the loss of over 3,000 people that day, and we just pray for them. We pray for their families and loved ones that have been left behind. Father, finally, Lord, we just ask you to bless this meeting tonight and guide and direct us in all that we do in our decisions here tonight. We just give you all the praise. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We also welcome all those who are watching this evening by streaming. So we'll start our meeting with roll call. Ms. Courtwright.
Mr. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here.
Mrs. May.
Present.
Mr. Pace.
Here.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Here.
Thank you. All right, everybody's had a chance to review tonight's agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda for this evening? Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to add Resolution 25, 2022, Resolution 29, 2022, and Ordinance 17, 2022 to this evening's agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Ms.
second.
Alonso, thank you. In discussion by council. Any other additions or corrections? Mr. Alonso?
Yes, I'd also like to add proposed resolution 26 to the night's agenda.
Do I have a second to that? Mrs. May, thank you. Any other additions to the agenda? Mrs. Ramos?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to add ordinance 16, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Selfright, thank you. In discussion by council. All right, roll call with those additions.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
All right, now I'd entertain a motion with our agenda with all the additions for this evening. Ms. Ramos, thank you. Need a second? Mrs. May, thank you. In discussion by council, roll call.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
Right, agenda has been approved. Everybody's also had a chance to review the minutes that our clerk has sent to us, and are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept. Ms. Alonso?
Second.
Mr. Ramos, second. Any questions from the council or administration? Roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenwright.
Yes.
All right, minutes have been approved. Correspondence, Ms. Courtwright.
To Clerk of Council from Treasurer Tom Gerber. This is dated September 1st, 2022. This is the Investment and Savings Report for August of 2022. To Council and Administration and Chief Goodwin and Chief Parrish from Councilwoman Ramos. This is dated August 23rd, 2022. This is an email titled Response to Art District Liquor Licenses. To Council and Administration from Mayor Day, dated August 29th, 2022. This is an email titled Objections to Locating the New Homeless Shelter at 205 South Broadway. This email was replied to by Councilwoman Ramos. To Council and Administration from Executive Administrative Assistant to the Mayor, Jamie Bailey. This is dated September 1st, 2022. This is the Mayor's Office End of Month Report. To Council and Administration from Law Director Faith. This is dated September 7th, 2022. This is an email titled Response to Friends of the Homeless, with that as the attachment. To Council and Administration from Income Tax Administrator Vicki Daniels. This is dated September 9th, 2022. This is the Income Tax End of Month Report for August of 2022. To President Kemp and Law Director Fate, dated September 9th, 2022. This is an email titled, "Please assign to Public Works Committee with proposed Resolution 26, 2022." As the attachment, President Kemp asked Mr. Lonzer to take this issue into his committee. To President Kemp and Law Director Faith, this is dated September 9th, 2022. This is an email titled, "Please assign to the Finance Committee" with Resolution 27, 2022 as the attachment. President Kemp asked Mr. Ricklick to take this matter into his committee. To President Kemp from Law Director Faith, this is dated September 9th, 2022. This is an email titled, "Please assign to the Special and Contact Committee" with Ordinance 17, 2022 as the attachment. President Kemp asked Councilwoman May to take this matter into her committee. To Council Clerk from Administrative Assistant to the Auditor Heather Denham, dated August 12th, 2022. This is the August 2022 expense report with encumbrance detail and the statement of cash position from revenue and expense. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day, dated September 12th, 2022, the Mayor's report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtwright. All right, we move into our administrative reports. First up, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. A few things I want to highlight from the report I sent you earlier today. During its regular monthly meeting tomorrow, the City Planning Commission will meet here in council chambers at 1 o'clock to interview a second company that specializes in making municipal zoning code revisions. Many of the regulations in the city's existing zoning code have not been updated since 1987. Since then, there have been changes in the types of signage used and also property uses. The commission members and I agree that revisions are necessary to fit the city's master vision plan and to try to remove gray areas of zoning code enforcement. First interview of a company took place last week. Only 2 firms answered the request for proposal that I issued in July. The city's fire inspector has served a notice of initiation of nuisance declaration process letter to the owners of the Days Inn, formerly the Oyo Motel, at 181 Bluebell Drive Southwest. The notice said that criminal and drug activity has occurred at the motel, stating, quote, "Over the past 12 months, the New Philadelphia Police Department and/or Fire Department have responded to complaints at the above address at least 51 times," end quote. Under the nuisance ordinance adopted by council earlier this year, the letter is the first step toward declaring the motel as a nuisance property if it does not comply with the corrective actions listed by the fire inspector. The notice states that if additional nuisance activities or any additional felony occurs over the next year, including within 1,000 feet of the property, the motel will be declared a nuisance property, and the owners will be responsible for the cost of the response of all safety force personnel. Under the ordinance, the owners can appeal the notice to the city's Housing Board of Appeals. Over the weekend on social media, if you use it, and maybe you didn't notice it, the owners of Miller's Creamery has announced that they have purchased a former Arby's restaurant at 2337 East High Avenue. The owner said that the new location will allow Miller's Creamery to be open year-round with a drive-through, dine-in seating, and a large patio out front. So this will be the last year for their seasonal location by the airport, and we want to thank Miller's Creamery for growing their business here in New Philadelphia. And finally, the City Park Board and the Tuscarora Park Foundation have set the ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony to officially open the new pickleball courts at Tuscarora Park for Sunday, October 16th at 1 p.m. The foundation will have a chicken barbecue fundraiser on Al Maloney Drive prior to the event. That'll be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tickets are available from any foundation board trustee or at McIntosh Realty office on Tuscarawas Avenue Northwest. Construction of the 4 new courts is progressing on schedule. The project should be completed by the end of this month. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Anybody needs tickets? I have tickets for the chicken barbecue.
Yeah, I have tickets.
But so does the mayor. But anybody have any questions for the mayor in his report? If not, we'll move on to the service director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Since we met a few weeks ago, the Park Lane Waterline Project has been awarded to Tucson Incorporated out of New Philadelphia in the amount of $489,196. That includes the alternate bid, which is going to run some 6-inch water line up to 416 and loop that system in. There's an area there that had no service. So that'll be done probably at the beginning of next month. They look to mobilize and start that project. Also, as we all know, Second and Ashwood at the sanitary and the storm manholes, that was completed and done and paved all in the same week, which we got lucky on. Newton's happened to have an off day on that Friday, so if you look over there, it is all completed and finished. I'd like to add that with the complexity of that project, I don't know how it could have went any better. I mean, I've never seen one pull it off like that, but glad it did. There was plenty of opportunity there for things to go wrong, and it did not. So it was a great project. Also, since the last meeting, the CDB project has been completed, which we all know that was some curbing in, up on 2nd Street Northwest, up to Minnick on the northwest side, and then we did all the sidewalks on the west side from North Avenue up to Minnick. All the lawn restoration got put in early last week. So again, that is completed also for this year. Also, as we all know, it's fair season, so that means hydrant flushing time. So that will start this Sunday, the 18th. It starts at 10 p.m. and they'll work until 6 a.m. and that'll go through Saturday night, Sunday morning, again on the 25th, and be completed. Again, like every year I say, get some dirty water, run the cold, run it out through, don't run the hot, don't want it in the hot water tank. So just remember that. Also then, since that meeting, we all know the small cities grant process we was awarded a couple of years ago that's going to happen in 2023, the $1.4 million grant. We was fortunate enough to put out for another one for 2026 and was awarded another $1.3 million grant for paving. Have a report, we got that letter, it's almost been 2 weeks now. That one will get us Union Avenue done from Martin Street to Ray Avenue. We'll do Reeser Avenue from East High Avenue to 21st Street. And it's got some heavy traffic thoroughfares, 2nd Street, northwest from Fair over to Front, southwest. And then it does Fair Avenue from 2nd to 2nd, northwest to northeast. So again, that'll be in 2026. And that is also a 95-5 like it has been previous years. Sometimes I go back to an 80-20, depending on the toll road money. It's still up good, so they pick up the other 15% for us. So again, for I think next year's project in the $1.3 million range, we'll owe 72,000 of that. So again, that'll be in 2026, but have to report that we got that grant again. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. McAbeer. Move on to Safety Director, Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. A couple items this evening. If you could mark your calendars for October 13th from the hours of 5 to 8 in the fire department. It is their fire prevention open house will be held. Also in the fire department, currently there are approximately 300 calls up from last year. So business is continuing to just move right along. The other item I have is on August 29th at East High and 2nd Street, a police cruiser was involved in an accident here at 2nd and East High, responding to a call. And we are currently working with the insurance company to determine what's going to happen with the cruiser. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Any questions for the Safety Director? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Auditor, Mrs. Gundy.
Thank you, I have no report.
All right. Treasurer, Mr. Gerber.
No report, sir.
All right. Law Director, Mr. Fate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to piggyback on something that the mayor touched on. And I want to thank council for the action they're taking with regards to the nuisance abatements ordinance. I was actually passed last year. What council did this year was to modify it so that the appeals board would be our housing board of appeals, which is a fantastic group that we think is going to do a phenomenal job for us and has done a phenomenal job in the other areas that it oversees. When I first came on board, I was always asked, we're getting called here all the time because of drugs and crime. Is there any way we can make them pay for it? And I found a way, and the nuisance abatement ordinance is the way to do it. And it's basically a 3 strikes and you're out. But if it's a felony, it could be even less. Well, the reason they've been cited this time is because of a felony that occurred at the Oyo Hotel. So they're on the clock. I'm fairly confident that they're going to have, given their past history, that they're going to have more than 3 or that there's going to be another incident down there in the near future. And this is designed to deter that type of behavior by hitting these places in their pocketbooks, which is where it counts. If you're not going to be good stewards in the city of New Philadelphia, we're going to come after you. We're going to protect our community. As I've said before, the drug overdose problem in Tuscarawas County we rank the 18th in the state of Ohio out of 88 counties. And I'm really proud that New Philadelphia is being proactive in attacking that issue head-on with the nuisance abatement ordinance, as well as the actions that we've taken to get rid of dilapidated properties, which have become an infestation for drugs in our communities. So I'm really proud of what this council's doing. And to my knowledge, we're the only city or village in Tuscarawas County that's doing this. I did have a call from the mayor of Dover about a month ago. He wanted to take a look at our ordinance, and I sent him everything on it. And hopefully this starts the ball rolling. We're stamping this out all over Tuscarawas County. So I just want to thank you again for doing that and let you know that Oyo's on the clock. Days in, whatever they're calling themselves these days.
All right, any questions for the law director? Good comments. All right, move on to our board commission reports. First up, planning commission, Mayor Day.
Planning Commission, as I indicated in my report, Mr. President, a meeting here at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And we'll be interviewing a second zoning consultant.
All right, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAmeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow evening's meeting at 5 p.m. has been canceled. There will be no variance request to be heard.
Great. All right, Airport Commission, Mr. Seldenwright.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report, but we will be meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Going to be a busy day tomorrow. Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening, but we are meeting Wednesday at noon at the Park Pavilion.
All right, Health Board, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening, but you had asked me to take into my committee the hazard mitigation plan. I have not called a meeting. I'm waiting on additional information from the county. I have called and have not received that information today.
Okay.
Also, Project Hope has been launched here in Tuscarawas County. And I have invited Jody Salvo to speak to council briefly. And we're looking at September as National Recovery Month, being a very important month concerning drug addiction. But I would like to introduce to council Jody Salvo and ask her to step to the podium and say a few words.
Jody, you might need to turn that microphone on back there. There's a button.
There's an on-off switch. Let me,
I'm so sorry.
Technical assistance.
Any sort of technology is not my friend.
That's why I'm not jumping up, Jody, to help you.
Oh, did I get it? I think I just got it.
You got it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it. First of all, thank you, Mr. President and Council. Thank you, Dean Holland, for inviting me. My name's Jody Salvo, and I coordinate Empower Tusk, and Carrie came to support me as the chairperson of Empower Tusk. Carrie and I are also involved on the Addiction Task Force, and I greatly appreciate the effort and the work and the support from New Philly City Council on the work that we're doing. So Project Hope, I know you've seen this this is year number 5, those silhouettes around the county. This year, Mayor Day offered Tuscarora Park for New Philly's silhouettes. We also have them at the courthouse. Project Hope is an effort each year to help do a couple things. First, it is to decrease stigma around addiction. Because as long as people do not understand addiction, it's hard for people to reach out and get the help they need. With the silhouettes, it also provides an opportunity to promote the Hope Line here in Tuscarawas County. Because of all the issues we've had with drug overdoses, deaths, in 2020, we launched a Hope Line with funding that we received, some federal funding. Because people who struggled with addiction prior to the Hope Line, they didn't know where to turn to get help. They might call the Adams Board, Ohio Guidestone, Springvale, which all have wonderful people and wonderful services. But sometimes it's really just hard to find the right fit. What level of care? A lot of people don't know what they're looking for. Do you need inpatient, detox, intensive outpatient, support groups, that type of information? So that used to be a very frustrating cycle of how do people get the help they need. So we have the Hope Line now. It's a one number, one call, one person, no redirects, that if a loved one would be calling in to say, hey, I have someone struggling with addiction, that one person, their job is to help people get the support and the services they need. If someone wants to get help, they call, and again, one person helps get the help they need. So Project Hope is just vitally important in our county because we really do need to work on addressing our problems with addiction. I just kind of want to give you some numbers. In 2021, we lost 25 people to overdose deaths, and we had 236 recorded overdoses. And when I say recorded, those are the ones that actually get kind of logged to the 911 system. So the first 6 months of 2021, we had 9 deaths. And in 2022, we have had 9 deaths in the first 6 months. We have seen a decrease. Our recorded overdoses in the first 6 months were 96, and they were much higher last year. But I will say 47 of the recorded overdoses were here in New Philly. With that, I applaud the efforts to kind of look at those problem areas, look at those vacated areas, and really commit to some work on that. But this is such a multifaceted issue. It's a multi-pronged approach that's needed. So we need to deal with our identified hotspots and problem areas. And the Addiction Task Force, I know, works with Mayor Day to kind of say, hey, here's our hotspots. Wes at New Philly Fire Department, I mean, that is what he works on. Once a month, we sit down and we see where the hotspots are, and we try to figure out what trends we're seeing and really develop strategies to address that. So the Addiction Task Force is working on how do we mitigate the problems we have. But then we have the other side, that we have to raise awareness, we have to provide education, we have to decrease barriers for people to get the help they need. So we launched Project Hope on August 31st. That's International Overdose Awareness Day. And that gives us an opportunity to stop and remember those that we've lost. We lost 9 Tuscarawas County residents to overdose death this year already, first 6 months. So with that realization, we can stop and remember those that we've lost. Those are people's moms and dads and children and loved ones that we've lost. I think sometimes with addiction, you can think of what you see in those real problem areas, but addiction really kind of takes over who a person is. But that's still somebody, someone. So August 31st, it's a stop and remember. And then we have a whole month, National Recovery Month, which is the month of September, to really focus on treatment works, recovery happens. And we have so many people in long-term recovery, And we have an emerging, vibrant recovery community here in Tuscarawas County. So just to help people stop and know, hey, you know, we don't have to stay here in addiction, but it's a community issue to help people get the help they need, find the services, find the resources. And then the other piece, Carrie and I are with Empower Task, we also need to work on preventing substance use. So we're diligently also working on how do we stop people from using, how do we educate our young people, how do we educate parents, how do we protect communities to be safe. And again, I applaud efforts to oppose dispensaries here in the community, but we really need to think about on-ramps or vaping, their alcohol use, their marijuana use. So those are all the things that we're also working on. But I thank you for inviting me here today. Project Hope is only as effective as people understand the silhouettes that they see and the numbers they see. So we did hold a press conference on August 31st. We had Congressman Johnson, Senator Hottinger, Brett Hillier, our elected officials, our commissioners, a lot of our community, state, federal leaders to bring awareness to this issue. But now our community members, we need to share on social media, promote the Hope line. If you follow Empower Task, we do a lot of messaging around stigma reduction and helping people get resources. So my other request would to share that information, because that's what's going to make our county healthy, and that's what's going to help New Philadelphia in its pursuit to have a healthy community. Any questions? Yes.
Jody, could you tell us more about Hope Sunday and what's happening? I know the video is not being released yet, but
Absolutely. September's
Thank
a
you.
month of hope for us. Empowered Task, once a year, in addition to Project Hope, we have an annual event called Hope Sunday, where we reach out to the faith community and we present an issue, usually around addiction, around recovery, around mental health issues. This year, it's around the marijuana issue. So we create a video this year. We have some community leaders. Sheriff Campbell's in there, ex-superintendent Mark Murphy, Judge Elizabeth Tamakis, myself will be speaking in there, and a young person whose initiation to substance use was marijuana. So the video explains a little bit about the efforts that are happening right now here in Ohio to expand Ohio's medical marijuana program, and efforts in Ohio to have a ballot initiative in 2023. So what we are doing is providing information on the churches of a video, a bulletin insert, what do you need to know, how can you pray for this issue, a pastor script to understand that issue, and why Empower Task is bringing that to our church community. It's a really complicated issue. So when people think about expanding the Ohio medical marijuana program, I don't think I would have a problem if we were expanding the program as it exists. But the expansion that they're proposing is to move the program from the Department of Pharmacy to the Department of Commerce. So medicine, we're gonna move from pharmacy to commerce. It allows unfettered advertisement. And the cannabis industry is a $32 billion industry that profits from addiction. And their leaders are the ex-CEO from OxyContin, the CEO from Altria, which is over Philip Morris. So they got a good playbook. They know how to promote addiction. It allows for the advertising, increased levels of THC. That's what gets you high to 90%. Back in my day, 3 to 4%. And it requires no medical diagnosis. So we're letting the church know, hey, this isn't expanding a medical program. This is creating an opportunity to flip to recreational program. And then, as far as the ballot initiative, let them know that it's not inevitable. It's only inevitable if we take no action. So helping people understand, with recreational legalization comes commercialization. Commercialization means advertising, signage. It decreases the perception of harm. It normalizes marijuana use. And to help adults understand, this isn't a joint that we're talking. Our young people get their marijuana through vaping devices, which they already have an issue with here in our communities. So if our young people are vaping nicotine and they start with marijuana, it's really hard to detect in our schools. The younger the use, the higher the potency, the greater chance for addiction. So when we're talking about Project Hope and stopping the addiction problem that we have, we really do need to stop that youth use. So Empower Task is really fixed on how do we prevent young people from engaging in substance use. And because our young people have a problem with a vaping device, that is the same device that they will use for marijuana if we have a recreational program. So thank you for asking. We have 120 churches participating as of today, and that will reach 7,000 people in churches on September 25th. Because we asked for a bulletin count, so some churches might say 20, some might say 50, some might say 100. So at this point in time, and we still have some big churches that normally participate that we have not reached yet. So thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Fate?
Yes.
Years ago, we had a component at the Tuscarawas County Health Department for drug and alcohol addiction. When I first started off as an attorney, that was a wonderful tool. I don't know why we lost that. I don't know if there was state funding or what happened. But when I started off as an attorney 20 years ago, and was primarily a defense attorney, I saw people whose lives were destroyed by drugs and alcohol, and I'd get them into that program before we even set foot in front of a judge. The judge kept that going, and you could also get an anger management assessment and treatment for that. Is there any chance anything like that's ever gonna come back? Because it seemed to really help.
It's kind of the place where the recovery courts are stepping into right now, and our recovery courts are very effective. The Hope Line is that other mechanism to get people to the right level of care. So I will let you know, Ohio Guidestone does a phenomenal job, Springvale also, New Life Counseling. So we have great counseling agencies that are working diligently on this issue, and the courts do a phenomenal job as well. Other effective approaches that we have is promoting naloxone, looking at medication-assisted treatment. The quick response team is very effective. We can look at a decreased recidivism rate. So I know that program is gone, but hopefully those other ones are kind of picking up.
Are those other programs free also?
You know what, I'll tell you, with a lot of the federal dollars coming down, if people want treatment, they can get treatment.
Okay, because that was one of the aspects, is I worked in the public defender's
Yeah.
office, and we represented indigent people. And so to have an asset like that in our community,
Yeah,
I thought
there's a lot of
was
our
tremendous.
agencies, and I can speak for Ohio Guidestone, because I am an employee of Ohio Guidestone. A lot of those federal COVID dollars that are coming down are spent that way.
Good.
Yeah. And we are able to get people into treatment now. That quick response team, if someone's ready, we can get them placed.
Yeah, I'm really glad you've got a one hotline that you can call to
Yeah.
get help, because that's.
It's a game
I think that's
changer. It
tough.
absolutely is.
And what is that number, local number for the
It
Hope
is
Line?
330-663-6812. And what I can do is I can put a post right on Empower Tusk if you want to share it. I can do that when I get home tonight, because I think that's the easiest way. I'll just move it up, go ahead and share that out. Super helpful. And I just ordered 50 more Hope Line yard signs, so we'll be, as soon as I get them in from the print shop, we'll be kind of plastering them. We were thinking libraries, police, fire departments, any real public places that people are going. So we'll get those out in the community, more of them.
Any other questions for Jody? Thank you for coming and sharing
I
tonight.
appreciate your service, and
Thank
thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I know that you're well aware that this body is quite concerned about the drug problem and recognizing that New Philadelphia has a problem along with the problem that exists throughout the county. But certainly appreciate Ms. Salvo and her efforts, which are daily ongoing. She is quite aggressive in the programs that she represents. And the last item I have, the Health Department, the Health Board, will be meeting this Wednesday, the 14th, here at noon in the council chambers. And that concludes my comments for the evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holland. All right, move on to our council committee reports. Finance, Mr. Ricklick.
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening, but I like to mention that I have a committee meeting on the 26th at 7 PM for the Finance Committee. And I would like to ask the mayor, have you got your budgets together?
The auditor and I will have we're gonna spend the next couple of weeks roughing it out, so we'll have the rough version done in time.
By the end of the month?
But, yeah,
You see, okay.
yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
And also the project list.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of my.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ricklick. Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Alonso.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works and Economic Development Committee met this evening at 6:51, and we had a brief discussion on proposed Resolution 26, 2022. It involves the Municipal Bridge Inspection Program. After a short discussion, we voted unanimously to add the proposed legislation to tonight's agenda, and the committee is asking to pass it on first reading as an emergency.
All right, any questions for Mr. Alonso? All right, move on to Safety, Health, and Service, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. No committee report this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, Zoning and Annexation, Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. The Zoning and Annexation Committee did meet tonight at 7 o'clock to discuss proposed ordinance 16/2022, which is on the agenda tonight for 3 readings. This is to rezone permanently a piece of property owned by the county commissioners from industrial zone to business zone. This is on the corner of East High Avenue and 10th Street, right there on the corner northeast. And so we did put that on the agenda to be read 3 times for the rezoning.
All right, any questions for Mrs. Ramos? Now we'll move on to salary, Mr. Seldenwright.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, move on to Cemetery Committee, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. Move on to Contact and Special, Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Special Contacts Committee met this evening at 6:45. We reviewed Resolution 2522, which was to approve amounts and rates for tax levy, and Resolution 29, 2022 regarding the formula for distribution of local government funds. We also reviewed Ordinance 17, 2022, which was the agreement for Indigent Defense Services for 2023. It was voted on to add all of those resolutions and ordinances to tonight's agenda and to pass Resolution 25 and 29 this evening by suspending the rules. And then we adjourn the meeting at 6:51.
All right, thank you, Mrs. May. All right, we'll move into visitors' comments. The floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state your name and address, and address all comments to the chair. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to council comments. Any council persons that wish to address council this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our legislative agenda. Ms. Courtwright.
Ordinance number 16, 2022, an ordinance by the council of the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to permanently rezone parcel number 43-04799-000 in the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio, from industrial zone to business zone, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Hearing none, we have next scheduled council meeting.
Ordinance number 17, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with the Tuscarawas County Public Defender's Office for the provision of legal representation for indigents charged with violations of New Philadelphia city ordinances in the municipal court where such offenses carry a possible loss of liberty, establishing compensation and terms thereof, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Hearing none, it would be held for our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Resolution number 25, 2022, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mrs. May?
Mr. President, I request that we suspend the rules for Resolution 25, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Selbright, thank you. Any discussion by council, administration? Roll call.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick?
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended for resolution 25, 2022. Do I hear a motion to pass resolution 25, 2022? Mrs. May, thank you. Second? Mr. Selbright, thank you. In discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick?
Yes.
All right, resolution 25, 2022 has passed.
Resolution number 26, 2022. The following is a resolution enacted by the City of New Philadelphia of Tuscarawas County, Ohio, hereinafter referred to as the Local Public Agency, LPA, whereas the LPA has determined the need for the described project, bridge inspection program services, including but not limited to routine inspections, element level inspections, critical finding report, fracture, critical member inspections, load rating calculations and reports, weight limits, posting sign recommendations, score assessments, score plan of action, development of fracture critical plans, and underwater dive inspection report if needed. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Lonzo?
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we suspend the rules on resolution 26, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Pace, thank you. In discussion by council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Would entertain a motion to pass resolution 26, 2022. Mr. Lanzer, thank you. Need a
Yes.
second? Thank you, Mr. Pace. All right, any discussion by the community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, resolution 26, 2022 has passed.
Resolution number 29, 2022, a resolution accepting the alternate formula for distribution of local government and local government revenue assistance funds as proposed by the Tuscarawas County Budget Commission and as prescribed in section 5747.53 of the Ohio Revised Code. First reading.
Is there any action taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mrs. May,
Mr. President, I ask that we suspend the rules on Resolution 29, 22.
do I have a second? Mr. Selman, thank you. Any discussion by council? Roll call.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Entertain a motion to pass resolution 29, 2022. Mrs. May, thank you. Need a second. Mr. Selbright. Any discussion by community, administration, council? Roll call.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, resolution 29, 2022 has passed.
And that concludes legislation for this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Cartwright. Is there any unfinished or old business to discuss this evening? Is there any new business to discuss this evening? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I would move that this regularly called meeting of the New Philadelphia City Council be adjourned.
Thanks, Mr. Hall.
Threw that out.
I didn't miss a